Black investor pulled from first class, then quietly bought out the entire airline's parent company. Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me. The flight attendant's voice was polite, but the tension behind her smile was impossible to miss. Every conversation in the first-class cabin seemed to pause. Heads turned, eyes locked onto the man seated comfortably in seat 2A. Marcus Whitfield slowly looked up from his book. He was dressed simply, a navy sweater, dark jeans, and worn leather shoes. Nothing flashy, nothing designed to attract attention. At 56 years old, Marcus had spent most of his life avoiding unnecessary attention. Unfortunately, attention had found him anyway. Is there a problem? He asked calmly. The flight attendant shifted uncomfortably. A passenger has reported that you may be sitting in the wrong seat. Several passengers glanced toward a well-dressed businessman across the aisle. The man quickly looked away. Marcus already understood what was happening. It wasn't the first time. Probably wouldn't be the last. He handed over his boarding pass. The attendant examined it, then examined it again. A hint of embarrassment crossed her face. Seat 2A, first class. Exactly where he belonged. I'm sorry, sir, she said quietly. Before she could finish, another airline employee arrived. This time, a supervisor. The supervisor didn't bother looking at the boarding pass. Sir, we're going to need you to step off the aircraft while we verify some information. A murmur spread through the cabin. Marcus looked around. No one said anything. No one objected. Most simply watched. The way people often watch when something uncomfortable happens to someone else. For a moment, Marcus considered arguing. Instead, he smiled. Of course. He gathered his things and followed them off the plane. As he stepped into the jet bridge, he heard someone laugh. Not loudly, just enough. The sound wasn't what hurt. It was how familiar it felt. 40 years of success couldn't completely erase memories of moments like this. Moments when people saw his skin color before they saw anything else. The airline employees escorted him to a small office near the gate. The supervisor asked questions, repeated questions, requested identification, then requested additional identification. Marcus answered politely, never raising his voice, never losing his composure. After nearly 30 minutes, a senior manager finally entered. She reviewed the documents, looked at Marcus, looked back at the documents. Then her face turned pale. Oh my God, the supervisor frowned. What? The manager lowered her voice. Do you know who this is? The supervisor shook his head. The manager swallowed hard. This is Marcus Whitfield. Silence. The name clearly meant nothing to him. The manager stared in disbelief. Whitfield Capital. The supervisor's expression changed instantly. Everyone in the room suddenly understood. Whitfield Capital was one of the largest private investment firms in North America. Its holdings stretched across banking, technology, healthcare, transportation, and real estate. The company managed billions, and Marcus Whitfield owned a controlling stake. The manager looked horrified. Mr. Whitfield, I am deeply sorry. Marcus smiled gently. It's okay. But it wasn't okay. Not really. Because the problem had never been about him. The problem was that this could happen to anyone. A college student, a teacher, a nurse, a veteran, someone without resources, someone without influence, someone whose voice might never be heard. The manager immediately offered upgrades, vouchers, and apologies. Marcus declined every offer. I'd simply like to continue my trip. The manager insisted on escorting him personally back to the aircraft. As they approached the cabin, every eye turned toward him again. The same passengers who had watched silently earlier now looked uncomfortable. The businessman across the aisle suddenly became fascinated with his phone. Marcus took his seat without saying a word. The plane finally departed. Most people would have spent the flight angry. Marcus spent it thinking, not about revenge, not about lawsuits, about solutions. Because solutions were always more valuable than anger. Halfway through the flight, he noticed a young flight attendant struggling to balance a service cart. A sudden patch of turbulence nearly caused her to fall. Marcus reached out and steadied the cart. Careful. The attendant looked embarrassed. Thank you. She couldn't have been older than 23. Her name tag read Emily. Later, during a quiet moment, she approached him. I'm really sorry about what happened earlier. Marcus smiled. You didn't cause it. She hesitated. No, but I saw it. That answer caught his attention. Many people witnessed unfairness. Few admitted it. Emily glanced around before continuing. My younger brother has autism. Marcus listened carefully. People judge him all the time without knowing anything about him. Her voice softened. I think that's why what happened bothered me. For the next hour, they talked. About family, dreams, challenges. Emily revealed she was working 2 jobs to help support her mother after her father's death. She wanted to finish nursing school, but tuition was becoming impossible. Marcus asked questions, not because he was wealthy, because he genuinely cared. Most people were carrying invisible burdens. They simply needed someone willing to listen. By the time the plane landed in Chicago, Marcus had learned more about Emily's life than many of her coworkers probably knew. As passengers exited, Emily thanked him again. "You've been very kind." Marcus handed her a business card. "If you ever need advice about school or career planning, send me an email." She looked surprised, then smiled. "Thank you." After leaving the airport, Marcus climbed into a waiting car. His assistant called immediately. "How was the flight?" Marcus stared out the window. "Interesting." His assistant recognized the tone. "What happened?" Marcus explained everything. A long silence followed. Then his assistant sighed. "They picked the wrong passenger." Marcus laughed. "No, they picked the wrong problem." "Meaning?" Marcus looked at the skyline passing outside. "Find out who owns the airline." His assistant paused. "Why?" Marcus's answer was simple. "Because I think it's time to take a closer look." Over the next several weeks, researchers gathered information. The airline itself wasn't publicly available for acquisition, but its parent company was vulnerable. Poor leadership, declining customer satisfaction, employee turnover, mounting financial pressure. The deeper Marcus looked, the more concerned he became. The first-class incident wasn't an isolated mistake. It was a symptom of a culture that had stopped valuing people. Customers felt ignored. Employees felt unheard. Management focused entirely on quarterly profits. The numbers told a story. But so did the people. Marcus spent months quietly interviewing workers throughout the organization. Pilots, mechanics, flight attendants, gate agents, baggage handlers. Most expected another wealthy executive who only cared about spreadsheets. Instead, they found someone who listened. Someone who asked about their families, their struggles, their ideas. Many employees cried during those conversations. Not because life was easy, because nobody had asked for their opinion in years. The more Marcus learned, the more convinced he became. The company didn't need punishment. It needed leadership, real leadership, the kind built on respect. Then an opportunity appeared. A major shareholder wanted out. Several investment groups began circling. Within weeks, negotiations quietly began. Few people noticed. Even fewer understood what was happening. Except Marcus. Because for the first time, he wasn't simply evaluating an investment. He was evaluating a chance to change lives. And by the time the board finally realized who was buying shares, it was already too late.